Welcome to Life Stories, where real people share unforgettable moments of love, betrayal, and resilience. Today's story takes us deep into the heart of a wedding that was never meant to celebrate, but to shame. A bride to be finds herself surrounded by traditions she doesn't understand, in a family that never planned to accept her. But what they didn't know was she was listening and she was ready. Subscribe to Life Stories to begin today's powerful journey of courage, heartbreak, and one woman's unforgettable stand for truth. Let's begin. I never imagined my life would take such a strange, almost cinematic turn. I grew up in a small town in Oregon, forests, quiet coffee shops, neighbors who waved as they passed. It was a simple life, and I liked it that way. But about 4 years ago, in search of something different, I took a teaching position down in Savannah, Georgia. I wanted warmth, both in the weather and in the culture. I thought I found both. I also thought I found love. That's where I met Ryan. He wasn't flashy or loud. He was soft-spoken, funny, and thoughtful, at least at first. He carried himself with this quiet southern charm that felt authentic. He'd always pull out my chair, remember how I liked my tea, and send texts just to say goodnight. It wasn't hard to fall for him. We dated for over a year and a half before he proposed, and I said yes with my whole heart. When Ryan brought me home to meet his family in a rural town tucked deep in the Appalachian foothills, I was nervous, but hopeful. I wasn't expecting a grand welcome, but I thought I'd at least be treated with basic kindness. Instead, I was met with sideways glances, cold smiles, and conversations I couldn't follow. You see, Ryan's family wasn't just Southern. They were proud Appalachian. They spoke in a thick local dialect that, while technically English, sounded so different I often couldn't make out full sentences. I speak English fluently, obviously, but this felt like being dropped into another country. I figured things would get better with time, that they'd warm up to me once they saw I was genuinely trying. But that wasn't what happened. When we started planning the wedding, I suggested something small and bilingual, parts of the ceremony in standard English for my parents and friends flying in from Oregon. I just wanted them to feel included. That's when everything started unraveling. Jenna, Ryan's older sister, cut me off mid-sentence during our first planning meeting. She actually laughed and said, "Oh no, sweetheart, that's not how we do things here. The ceremony has to be in our dialect. That's tradition." I tried to reason with her, to at least include a few English readings or translations, but she looked at me like I was being unreasonable. "You don't need to understand," she said, smiling just a bit too widely. "You'll get the general idea." I turned to Ryan, hoping, expecting him to say something, to stand up for me. He just gave a half shrug and mumbled, "It's just tradition, babe. You'll be fine." I should have walked away then. I really should have. But love makes you hope, doesn't it? It makes you excuse things you normally wouldn't, especially when you want so badly to believe you found your forever person. But from that moment on, I was completely shut out. Every meeting, every menu choice, every decision was made without me. I'd sit there, smiling awkwardly, not understanding a single word as the family spoke around me. When I'd ask questions, I'd get placated. "Don't worry about it. We've got it covered. Just show up in the dress." They even made jokes about it. Once Jenna said, "You'll be surprised. Just show up and smile." Everyone laughed. I didn't. But what broke my heart more than anything was the invitation. My name wasn't even on it. Instead, it read, "Ryan and the Outsider." Literally, like I wasn't even a real person, just a prop in their little ceremony. My mom called me when she saw it and asked, "Is this some kind of joke?" I didn't know what to tell her. I couldn't explain what I didn't understand myself. When I confronted Ryan, he told me, "It's just a nickname, babe. They don't mean anything by it." But the truth was, they did. They meant everything by it. I felt it in every room, at every gathering, that I was being tolerated, not accepted. I wasn't part of their family. I was in it, but not of it. And Ryan, he just watched it happen. He didn't fight for me. He didn't protect me. He just went along. A month before the wedding, he changed. He grew distant. He stopped talking about our honeymoon, stopped asking about my day, stopped being affectionate. I thought maybe it was nerves. I told myself weddings are stressful, especially in tight-knit families like his. But deep down, I felt it. The shift, the chill, the unspoken distance widening between us. And I ignored it because I loved him, because I thought he loved me too. It took my best friend Emily flying in to finally confirm what I had feared all along. This wasn't just coldness or culture clash. It was something darker, something intentional, something cruel. And that's when I stopped being the clueless outsider they thought I was. That's when I started watching, listening, preparing. Because if they were planning something, I was going to be ready. By the time the wedding day came, I wasn't a bride glowing with excitement. I was calm, too calm. The kind of calm that comes after heartbreak, after the tears have already been cried. The kind of calm you feel when you've already accepted the worst and you're just waiting for it to finish playing out. But what Ryan and his family didn't know was that I hadn't just accepted it. I had planned for it. It started with Emily. She came with me to one of the final planning meetings. Everyone ignored her, assuming she couldn't understand their dialect. But she understood more than they realized. That night, over cheap hotel coffee, she looked at me and said, "They're not planning a wedding. They're planning a performance. And you're the punchline." I felt sick. We borrowed one of the abandoned wedding programs from a chair and took it to a local translator. It was worse than we thought. The vows the pastor planned to speak included lines about welcoming the outsider under the grace of family, about how I would need to submit to tradition and follow my husband's guidance. Jenna had her own speech prepared too. She planned to say, word for word, "We never thought Ryan would marry outside, but we've always been a generous family. We opened our arms to someone different." The word different showed up again and again. Foreign, obedient, unfamiliar. Even the playlist mocked me. One song literally joked about Americans putting ketchup on pasta. It was meant to get laughs. I didn't cry that night. I burned. I thought about the people flying in for me, my parents, my cousins. They were coming with love in their hearts, expecting joy, not knowing this family was preparing a live humiliation of their daughter. So I made a plan. Since I had paid for the venue, it was booked under my name. I had paid the DJ deposit. I had organized a translator for my side of the family, someone who was supposed to whisper translations for them during the ceremony. But now, she would be whispering everything to me. Emily helped me record the speeches from one of the rehearsals. She pretended she was filming for Instagram while capturing audio of Jenna and the pastor practicing their parts. Then I rented a second speaker system, one they didn't know about, labeled it emergency use, and had it wired to play a recorded clip at a specific time. That was my insurance policy, just in case I didn't get the courage to speak. But I did, at exactly 4:23 p.m., just as Jenna finished her speech. Smiling, triumphant, I took a deep breath and walked to the microphone. My voice didn't shake. "Hello, everyone," I said. "I've been asked not to speak today. I've been told I don't need to understand what's being said, that it's not for me to question the ways of this family." There was a silence that felt like falling. But I've heard the jokes. I've read the program. I know what this really was. Then I pressed play. The recording echoed through the church speakers. First, Jenna's voice, laughing during rehearsal. "She's clueless. She'll just stand there smiling. It'll be hilarious." Then came the pastor's voice. "This will teach her how things work around here." Gasps filled the room. One of Ryan's aunts dropped her wine glass, the shatter ringing across the stone floor like a gunshot. Ryan's mother went pale, clutching her pearls as if I just delivered a eulogy, not the truth. I saw Ryan whisper something to his mother, but he still didn't look at me. He hadn't said a word, not when I stood up, not when I took the mic, not when I exposed his family's cruelty. So I kept going. "I didn't come here to be mocked. I didn't agree to marry into a joke," I said. "I'm not some clueless outsider you get to parade around and humiliate in front of your friends." I turned and looked directly at my family in the back row. "Now I see why you were put back there. They didn't want you to see what this really was." My dad stood up, his jaw tight. My mom was crying, a tissue pressed to her mouth. And then, just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, a woman stepped forward from Ryan's side of the room. Mid-20s. Brown bobbed hair. Sharp eyes. I'd seen her earlier, chatting with Jenna. She took the mic from my hand. "I'm sorry," she said. "I can't stay quiet." She turned to the crowd. "I'm Natalie. Well, I am, seeing Ryan, for 6 months." The room turned inside out. I felt the floor drop from under me. My hands went cold. Jenna started yelling something unintelligible, but no one was listening. Natalie wasn't finished. "He told me he wasn't really in love, that he was doing this for his family, that she pointed at me, was just a safe option." Still, Ryan said nothing. "You cheated," I said softly. He didn't deny it. He didn't even raise his eyes. That silence said everything. My translator took out her earpiece and crossed the room to stand beside me. She leaned in and said, "They're embarrassed. They didn't know you had this much proof." Some didn't know, maybe. But Jenna? She wasn't ashamed. She was furious. She stormed up to me and hissed, "This was supposed to be a family event. You ruined it." I looked her dead in the eye and said, "No, you ruined it. I just showed everyone what it really was." She slapped me. That slap was her last mistake. Someone shouted, "Enough." It was the venue manager. "Everyone out, now." But I didn't leave. I walked back to the mic. I didn't come to Georgia to be part of a circus. I came here for love, for respect. Instead, I got lies, cruelty, and silence. But I want you all to remember something. I smiled through my tears. I paid for this venue, so my family will eat. We will dance. We will enjoy this night. Then I looked straight at Ryan. "You're not invited." And when I gave the DJ the signal, Aretha Franklin's Respect rolled through the room like thunder. The days that followed felt like waking up from a long, bitter dream. At first, there were phone calls, dozens of them. Ryan, his mother, Jenna, even some unknown numbers. They weren't calling to apologize. They were calling to blame. I had embarrassed them. I had made things personal. Not once did anyone say they were sorry. But they didn't know I had receipts, emails, voice recordings, even the translator's sworn statement. When Jenna tried to get my deposit withheld from the venue, I sent the manager everything. 3 hours later, he refunded me in full and let me know she'd been blacklisted. Just when I thought it was over, a new betrayal surfaced. Emily found a pre-wedding Facebook post of Jenna and Natalie laughing over wine, captioned, "Can't wait for the big surprise." Natalie wasn't a last-minute whistleblower. She was part of the setup all along. But their plan failed. The wedding wasn't legal. In the U.S., symbolic ceremonies mean nothing without paperwork. The legal signing was scheduled for 3 days later. It never happened. A week later, Ryan's uncle, who's a lawyer, sent me a formal letter accusing me of defamation. I didn't flinch. I released a public statement instead. No rant, no drama. Just the truth, with screenshots and audio files. Their reputation collapsed. Ryan tried one last time. A quiet email. "I'm sorry, you were right. I hope someday you'll forgive me." I never replied. I flew back to Oregon a month later. No tearful goodbye, no dramatic confrontation, just peace. People tell me I'm strong, but the truth is, I was terrified. I just chose to speak. And if my story meant something to you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Life Stories for more true tales of love, loss, and finding strength when you least expect it.